Right, gang, I hope this finds everybody well. As we've talked about in previous episodes, talk about performance with a purpose, and I'm here with a close friend, Mr. Craig Rutherford, down at the Huddle in Cheltenham. I'll let Craig introduce himself, what he's all about, what the Huddle's all about, and then we'll go into the depths and weaves of his story and what sort of next steps are.
Yeah, so my name's Craig. I've been in the fitness industry for 16 years, ranging from mixed martial arts, Muay Thai, CrossFit, worked in Singapore with Will. We worked in Singapore together 2016, 2017.
Bunking up in Rhino's lovely pad, mate. That was literally the strangest time to meet. We obviously went to college together. Not obviously, you won't know that. We went to college together too. So it was one of those times where the fitness industry connects you in many different ways, and that was another part of our life that we sort of connected in that region.
Yeah, we played in the same. You knocked me out the team actually. Funny enough, he started taking my spot.
Standard.
No, but I remember probably I was about 18, 19, come off the scrum, playing back row, went for a tackle, went for I think maybe inside centre, took a crash ball and just popped my shoulder out. And after that, I popped my shoulder back in on the pitch, and I was thinking to myself, no, I'm done. And then found mixed martial arts, and then just did not look back. When you go from that team aspect of sport into individual sport, or the emphasis, even though you have a team, you do jiu-jitsu, so you know how it works. You have to have a team around you.
Sure.
And that could be head coaches, that could be striking coaches in mixed martial arts anyway, grappling coaches, training partners, sparring partners. When you go from a team sport where you miss a tackle in rugby, you might have 14 other people that can make the tackle for you.
Yeah.
In individual sport, you can't. It's all on you. And whereas I didn't really go through I had a few fights, broke my arm in my first fight, first MMA fight.
Just to be clear, he got armbarred and had his arm snapped in half. He didn't just break his arm, he snapped his fucking arm in half.
Snapped. It was up here, like a pingo wing. I remember being on the floor and he'd snapped because I was in his guard. And if you don't know much about MMA or grappling, he was on his back, his legs were around me, he threw his legs around my face. My arm is now hyperextended by his elbow. I picked him up. And as I picked him up, all his weight was on my arm and it snapped me there.
Wow.
And I've gone down on my belly.
Yeah.
And then I went to post myself up, just sit up, and my arm was just doing this. And I was like, why can't I move? And then it was a case of everyone was just like, oh yeah, his arm, it was just up here, rotated as well.
Yeah. How did you, I think that's quite a poignant point, because a lot of people, me and you know, coaches I've interviewed before, they've all been through sport. And I think there's a weird transition where you start rugby like, I'm going to be a professional rugby player. Yeah. And life's all about rugby. Me and you are heartbeat. There's do or die. No one cared about anything else apart from Wednesday night at Liquid. That was it. The rest of it was all about rugby.
Yeah.
You've then transitioned to, it's still a combat sport and it's still got that adrenaline, but it's the opposite kind of environment where I feel in rugby you need to fit in to a team doing a certain job. And that's why me and you, obviously, we're not battling against each other, but we're two different types of back row, did different jobs, and the coach has a choice of who he wants to work with. Whereas MMA is like, if I can kick the fuck out of this dude and win, it's all on me. But in the pressures, how did you? Because I think the reason why I'm asking this is I'm big on what builds the coach's story.
Yeah.
And this is something that we just did a training session where you absolutely abused me in the best possible way.
You brought the workout up, mate. It's your fault.
I know, useless. But from a training standpoint, we both said when you're training together or training with somebody who's of like mind, who wants to push you, you get that extra 1% that you need.
Yeah.
How did you find transitioning from rugby to MMA? And what was your reason behind that? Because a lot of the time it's because they're not going to make it, so they transition, or was it a case of I just had enough of rugby, or what was it?
The first thing was the fact that I popped my shoulder out on the pitch, and I always had dodgy shoulders. So it was a case of I was thinking about having surgery. I was always a small back row anyway.
A gazelle, mate.
Yeah, well,
so you know what I mean? Gazelle for the middle.
I was thinking to myself, I'm going to have to either go into the backs here or I'm going to have to bulk up, you know. And that one day when I popped my shoulder out, and it used to pop out and pop back in anyway, I was thinking, okay, I'm done for the time being. And this was the stage of when, this was about 2008. So I remember not only was MMA on the rise and the UFC was on the rise, this is the era of, if anyone watches the MMA, is like the GSP era, Anderson Silvas, and I just was hooked by MMA at this point. And so for me, the transition was quite natural. I decided, I always did a bit of Thai boxing as a kid, when I was about 14, 15, and I liked the element of striking. And for me, getting into, and not only did I get into MMA at that time, I found CrossFit at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
So for me, having the mixed martial arts aspect, where it's a mixture of all different martial arts, then all of a sudden I got thrown into CrossFit from Owen Satterley. He actually coached at Hartbury as well.
Yeah.
Very, very good coach. He introduced me to CrossFit. And because he was a little bit older than me and he was so knowledgeable, he was my mentor at the time. So when I found MMA, which is a mixture of martial arts, I found a mixture of CrossFit, which was a mixture of fitness aspect. You couldn't be amazing in every area, but you had to be good in all areas. And it just hooked me. And since then, and that sort of took us on to like my coaching style as well, I absolutely love variety. If you asked me to win a gold medal in a certain sport, I probably couldn't do it because I love the ability to be able to do different things, not just narrow my focus, my attention on one thing.
Sure.
And early in my I'm not going to say my career, but let's say in my aspect of figuring out what I wanted to do, I found out very quickly that I was going to be a coach over an athlete.
Awesome. And that's a huge point for many people. That piece is a very difficult piece to admit sometimes.
It is.
Because I think, especially when you're a kid and you want to be a fireman, innit? Or you want to go to the moon or whatever you want to do. And then you realise that, especially as a coach, you suddenly realise that you kind of get off on helping people.
Yeah.
It's also indirectly helping yourself because you get fulfilled by it. That's a huge transition point for anybody, especially. I found that it's probably one of my superpowers was I may have played professionally, but I didn't get to the heights I probably aimed for.
Yeah. Because
of the extracurricular stuff that I was doing when I was PTing and physios or when I was working in school. I enjoyed connecting and coaching other people. And I think it's accepting that, right? I find that for people who don't do that, some people, especially when they leave sport, they're horrific. They don't want to, they find that very difficult to, but that transition seems to be quite easy for you.
Yeah, I was quite lucky. I walked into a club called Trojan Free Fighters. That was my first MMA gym. And at the time we had, world-class fighters. There was a guy called Ronnie Mann, he was fighting in Japan. We had, some Mike Edwards. These guys were big at the time. And for me, it was a case of walking in and realizing, okay, I'm not a natural fighter. For me, it's a learned skill.
Yeah.
I would have classed myself as a martial artist rather than a brawler.
Yeah.
I was never been a street fighter. I've never been that sort of way inclined, And
even though you're from Gloucester.
Even though from Gloucester, mate. Yeah, seen it all in Gloucester.
No judgment, yeah. Brother knows, as soon as interaction was kicking out, mate, that was it. We were ready, innit?
Week in, week out. No, but for me, it was a case of I saw the amount of talent that I could work with, and I think from day one I knew I wanted to go into PT and coaching, and because I was working at JJB, which is now Everlast gyms, they went from JJB to DW to Everlast, I believe. So I was working there as a PT, and I just loved the idea of training people and working alongside people. Working then into the MMA team was an easy transition for me to go, okay, I do enjoy the fighting, I enjoy the sparring, but I enjoy people getting where I know they can get to.
Sure.
Could I say I could ever get to the UFC? Probably not. I probably wasn't gifted enough to get to the UFC. But would I rather put all my eggs in one basket and try doing it? And listen, fighting's not a sport you want to come second in.
No.
Do you see what I mean?
No,
it's not
absolutely not.
And you don't play. It's not a game you play.
No.
So for me, it was a case of I did it. I got in there. I had probably about 6 or 7 fights. Brought my first one. Do you know what I mean? And fought a range of. I've fought MMA, K1 rules, and Muay Thai. So for me, the variety was still there. But went to the UFC with a good friend of mine, Shay Mills. Was in his corner for 3 out of 4 of his UFC fights.
Nice.
What an experience that was.
Yeah.
Was standing at one point opposite GSP on the cage, because he was in Roy McDonald's corner.
Yeah.
We were the co-main event for the John Jones and Rashad Evans fight in Atlanta.
Wow.
And the week of the fight, you're walking through the street, people are stopping us for autographs and so on. And not stopping me, stopping Shay, because in his first fight, his debut fight in the UFC, he got the knockout of the night bonus.
Wow.
Knocked the guy out in 44 seconds, and it was just
incredible.
It was in Birmingham, in our home country. And the crowd went mad for him.
Yeah.
Went to Atlanta for his second fight. We went to Florida to train, and it was just a mind-altering experience. You start realizing you're in a gym full of, I'm going to call them legally the most dangerous men alive. These guys. John Jones, 6'6", 6 whatever, and a gentleman.
Yeah.
And it made you realize after a while, like some of the toughest guys in the world can be nice. Can be humble, respectful people. Not all of them. Some are crazy.
Some of them are crazy.
Yeah, some of them are crazy.
Some of them are one below criminals, but it's fair.
But in all fairness, it opened my eyes to the world of conditioning as well, because Going into an MMA fight, 3 5-minute rounds, your condition has to be through the roof.
Yeah.
It might be a bit different on a rugby pitch, but again, you might be able to rely on 14 other people. But when the spotlights are on you and the cage door closes, there's no escape.
Yeah, no, it's such something that I found from transitioning from rugby to BJJ was that type of fitness. Because I was a back row, I was quite used to. I was in the mixer the whole time. I was in the combative arena. That was put me in, coach. That was me. I loved it.
With your face.
Put my face with their boots on. Yeah, but the way that you have to be conditioned for that, because it's a funny thing because people there's a fine line between doing mixed modal type conditioning, which hasn't got any direction, to doing mixed modal type conditioning, which has got huge amounts of direction. Like MMA is massive. Joel Jameson does that with Mighty Mouse and stuff. It's all around his heart rate and HRV. It's not necessarily around the actual the exercises.
Yeah.
It's more a case of how is he conditioning and getting him fitter.
Yeah.
I think that's probably it's super interesting to see your transition. And I didn't actually know you went over to do UFC over there. So that's fucking massive.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was in Chase Corner.
Yeah, but still, no.
Yeah.
Mate, as a coach, I'm friends with Sean Kober. Who's at Tiger? Was at Tiger Muay Thai. Now is at Apollo. He was Petrion's S&C coach. It's something that happens transitionally from a coach. Is you're the unsung hero because when the cage door shuts, mate, you've got absolutely no leeway or any rhyme or reason of what he can do. He's got to be able to stand up and deliver, innit?
And you know, I don't know if you're a fan of MMA, but there's been some absolute cardio machines over the years, you know. And if you can weather the storm, you know, in the first few rounds, and you just see the guys that work on their conditioning, their power goes, their footwork goes, their movement goes, their takedown ability, takedown defense ability goes.
But the batteries get drained, innit?
For sure. So, you know, realistically, it's a massive part of the sport. Whereas, again, a team sport, it might be a case you've only got a certain job to do. You might only have to get to the breakdown or the river breakdown. I don't follow rugby much anymore, and I'm sure the game's evolved since I played.
It's I'm like-minded like you. As soon as I finished rugby, it was done. I watch Six Nations now, but I probably don't know half the players. And the rules have changed, and I think, but that happens generationally when you've shifted identity a bit.
Yeah.
And you've put let go of one branch to grab the next one, which was MMA. The next one now for you is, like you said, now being the manager of the Huddle. I know we straight on the tangent. Let's go down the rabbit hole, mate.
Yeah.
Coming here to this facility where I know, Jack, me and you obviously moved to Singapore, which was, you moved before me. You were head of CrossFit Bukatima over there.
Yeah.
And then you moved back. Now, back in the UK, how are you taking your experiences from MMA, CrossFit, living internationally, lived in Thailand for a period of time too?
Yeah, a couple of times.
What's the ambition of the Huddle for you? Because obviously you're new, you're not... You're part of the furniture, but you're new, if you know what I mean. You've been here before. You've been with Django for years. You're now here. What's the ambition for you as a manager? What do you want to build within your team? And how is the rest of your previous molded this decision? Because I think that's something that's really interesting for viewers or people that are going to learn more about you. They already know that you're a tough motherfucker, excuse my French. But most people that sport's weird, and so is PT. You've apparently, whatever, let's say you're taking this dude to the UFC. The dude is proverbially a weirdo. He's the hardest man. He'll do anything he needs to for his physical training. He'll pay the money he needs to. Nutrition, sleep, no holds barred, kids out, women out. Whereas now you're dealing with mums, dads, youth sport, people that are doing I do a lot with corporate athletes. What's your take on your plans for the Huddle, and how do you transition from like sort of elitism to some respect to general application for general population or people that just want to get fitter, faster, stronger, healthier and happier?
Well, I think the first thing, just to touch on that, is I think one of the main factors of me moving over to Cheltenham and running the Huddle was James Forrester, who owns the gym. Working for him in Singapore, seeing what he's done with UFIT in Singapore, we both know how massive that's gone now, how that's expanded. For me, I trust James. So for me to come over here and do that was a no-brainer, really. Yeah, that's a tough one. How do you go from sort of working with more elite people, and I don't want to be derogatory in using that term, but going professional people.
We use professional. In rugby, professional means you get paid for a living.
Yeah.
Most people that will deal with it aren't getting paid to do CrossFit or to do fitness. So I think that gives it a fair.
And to be fair, I actually prefer the demographic of people that I work with now.
Nice.
I actually do enjoy working with the people who have a busy lifestyle. I always say to people, life gets in the way of training. This, for some people, isn't the be-all and end-all, right? This is, You know, you could be, it's a rainy day, it's 5 p.m, you just had a hard day at work, right? You can turn left to go to the gym, you can turn right to go home, you're hungry, you've got stuff to do at home. Do you turn left or do you turn right? And what I like to do, no matter where I am, no matter what gym I'm part of, is create a community. As soon as people walk through that door, they're happy to see the coach, they're happy to see the other people around them. You've got to create in that environment. Now, fitness has gone, you know, fitness has expanded hugely from when we started. Again, I've been in it for 16 years now. My philosophy is fitness is not fun. I don't like this term of fitness should be fun and we're playing games and stuff, right? For me, competition is fun.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the way we do things now, and I'm sure you're the same, is everything we do, we record it. We record our numbers, we record the weights, we record the times that we're doing our splits. It could be intervals, whatever.
Yeah.
And so for me, this becomes now a competition. This becomes a sport in its own right.
Yeah.
You know, we can set workouts where, as long as you can compare, you can measure, you can compare, and you can repeat a workout.
Yeah.
You can track your progress through that.
Sure.
So as much as people go, yeah, come to our sessions, we're gonna have fun. It's like, yeah, you can have a fun as a warm up, right?
Rather go walk a dog, bruv.
But exactly. But realistically, fun. You've got to work hard.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a huge poignant point of what a lot of the fitness industry, what happens in the fitness industry are people are glorifying a process that's meant to be difficult.
Yeah.
And change is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And it's not someone who's never trained before. It's not their fault that they've never been to the deep. To go into deep water and learn how to swim is really tough.
Yeah.
Our job as a coach is to bridge that gap and basically build more resilient individuals. That's the point. And like you said, training for me is a case of value for money.
Yeah.
I want to come in, get as much adaptation as possible. Because to be honest, anyone thinks that you're motivated to train every day is a liar.
Oh, for sure.
And it's a discipline thing.
Yeah.
And it's I know I need to do this to get better thing. And it's also, this is going to add to my ability to lead myself, lead other people, and be better.
Yeah.
I've got disco lights going on here.
Yeah.
So I think that's a massive point between me and you. The issue that, again, we can talk around the point about CrossFit, and this is what's super interesting, and I find it very difficult, is there's two types of CrossFit sort of mentalities. One of them is just random equals random.
Yeah.
There's also random is measurable.
Yeah.
And like you said, mentioned there, is you could do a workout which is mixed modal, that is fine. But you're tracking things within that workout to then see the progress, that then becomes a specific adaptation, rather than I'm just going to fuck somebody up and make them do burpees so they're sick, which is okay, cool, but why?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, like you said then, I think learning how to go into the deep waters is a good skill to be able to have. Life is not easy. You know, people have got their routines in life, but you never know when something random is going to happen in your everyday life. That pulls something out of you. That could be physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. I've been in some workouts before where I wanted to cry, you know, and you know,
we've been there.
Yeah, you know, you can't stop. And also, if you apply that to something like MMA, right, just because you want to stop, you can't.
No.
You're going to get your face
You get your face filled in. So that's probably interesting, like, because you can see, I think the people viewing this will realize is that what your past has done is actually brought you a full circle. You had to go and explore getting the shit kicked out of you to now realize that instead of getting physically beaten up, I could do it through training in some respect, but there is a purpose for it. And that's the biggest thing that we're trying to get from this, for me, is performance with a purpose. For me is being capable of doing what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
It's giving driven individuals who want more than just mediocrity the tools and the application to see the fruits of their labor.
Yeah.
Similarly, we're cut from the same cloth in that respect. So, like from a Huddle perspective, obviously it's always nice to bring someone new into anywhere. I'm not from this gym, but from any gym, it gives you a bit of a clean canvas. And like you said, you've now got the impetus to take some things that the Huddles had before, which have been positive, and also add your bit of flavour.
Yeah.
To the mix. What are the main things that you're working on in the next sort of 6 months for here, or what's the main thing that you're trying to get out of the team in the Huddle to start for the next foreseeable future?
So the main thing is obviously creating a healthy community around the area. You know, we're going to be getting into like Bishop's Cleeve. This is a local village around there, a big village as well. My intention whenever I coach anyone is, one, to make them move well.
Nice.
Right. I think. If you know, there's that little abbreviation that we use in CrossFit as well. I mean, I'm not part of the CrossFit gyms anymore, but I've always took my education base from CrossFit. I had a CrossFit gym in 2013, and I've worked in CrossFit gyms throughout, and I've used the methodologies and so on. But there's the MCI, mechanics, consistency, intensity, right?
Nice.
So My main thing is making sure that people move well. Because we know, you know as a coach, how people will move worse under fatigue, right? And what I want to try and make people do is realize you've got to switch this on. When you're fatigued and you're breathing, you're panting, and you've got to lift a heavy bar, you've still got to do the same technique as you did when you were fresh. And that's a trained response. That comes over time. So that's the first thing is making the community fitter and stronger.
Nice.
And I think, I'm a competitor by nature, and there's people in this gym that are competitors by nature. So, High Rocks has taken a big leap in the fitness world now. So maybe we look at doing High Rocks competitions as a gym. I'm actually setting a fitness I'm calling it the Universal Fitness Test, the Huddle Universal Fitness Test. So we're going to be running that in March. So that's the way that the members can come in, check their 1RMs, 1RM deadlift, 1RM press, 1RM squat. But then I will be sitting there as a judge, as an officiator, and I'll watch their squat. And I will be strict with their movement.
Again, like those will be watching this. The minute you say CrossFit, they'll go, "Fucking hell, he's a CrossFit coach." But there is such a difference between someone who actually gets what they're asking for, or they're just putting a brand above their name because they feel they're going to make some money. And that is the biggest. I used to be an absolute fucking arsehole with my clients in relation to movement mechanics. One, I want someone to get strong as physically possible. I want them to be the best version of themselves, and that takes progress. But the counter argument of that is when you are going to sort of higher intensities or higher sort of thresholds of fatigue, the sort of the ability for them to get injured is increased.
The standard drops,
and you're not dealing with people look at CrossFit, they see Matt Fraser, whereas if you actually sit back and go, okay, cool, what are the pieces of CrossFit that have actually changed the game for the fitness industry? Let's be honest. Like when people like Miko Salo came in, he was a weirdo.
Oh man, machine.
But that's the area where I remember where CrossFit massively hit me. Was like, fucking hell, this is going to change the life. Change how people see strength conditioning. That is the biggest differentiating factor of a gym that's going to see progress. Is a gym that actually has sort of standards. And standards of it. It's not just movement standards, but it's like what you should be aiming to achieve. What you said. I think it's such a good point that people don't test, so they don't measure. So they just go, how do you know you're getting better? If it's only built on aesthetics, that is literally a behavioural change and a diet thing. Most people don't want the capacity. If you want a six-pack, it's very easy. You could literally calculate their numbers, tell them their cardio, tell them their steps, and shut up and do it. But most people who will be watching this from here have got kids, family, mortgage, job, stress, insert life, blah, 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 blah. So I think that's super interesting to hear what that's the sort of next steps for the Huddle for sure.
CrossFit gets a bad rep. I'll always defend CrossFit. I started with CrossFit, and there's two, in my opinion, there's two things that can go wrong with CrossFit, and that's bad coaches and bad athletes.
Nice.
Right, and that can, athlete can be anyone who walks through the gym doors. So you can have bad programming. You can have far too much volume for your generic classes. I mean, everyone wants to be pushed a bit more. They can have competition classes and whatever. And I think, and then with the bad athletes, I can tell somebody, look, you need to take the weight down. I turn my back and the weight's up, and they're moving, ways that I wouldn't, because you can get big CrossFit classes. You can get 15 plus people, I only ever really work with 12 in a class, depending on the size of the gym. But 1 to 12 ratio for me is enough. But no, CrossFit, I'll always defend it. It's just, unfortunately, it can be slightly unregulated because there are affiliations and they're not franchises. So a CrossFit gym here can be doing a completely different model to the one down the road. One could have a strength bias, one could have a running bias, one could have a gymnastics bias, one could have big warm-ups, one could have no warm-ups. So it all comes down to the coach. And I'd say to anybody, CrossFit for me is great. CrossFit did change the game, as you said. Everyone's got something fit in their name now, strength fit or box fit or whatever it may be. It did change the game. The aspect of competition, the fitness as a sport changed. So you don't have to go on the rugby pitch no more. You don't have to go into a ring, step into a cage. You could step onto an arena where it's high rocks, skier and sled.
Is the common medium between both.
So what's next?
That's
what gets to me now is what's next. And I would love the idea of something like high rocks with lifting, with like a 1RM. You've got to put a total up, rising bar. And then
it's difficult because I find the thing about CrossFit is above the normal standard CrossFit is geared towards someone who's athletic.
Yeah.
The great thing about High Rocks is you could just be a Karen and her mates, and you could do it and take 2.5 hours if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Which is great. But like you said, having the leagues of new competitors who are doing this, it doesn't have to be so skill based, but it is like totals or lifting or whatever. It then becomes a whole different ball game. So now I think that part of the performance space is going to change. People want more metric-driven data, and people actually want to see more progress faster. That's the name of the game, innit? But the issue that we said earlier is nothing beats heavy lifting, doing some fucking hard cardio, and actually putting in some work over more than 3 weeks. Yeah. I think that's something that's massive for us. So from the last bit, and something that I ask all the people who come on here is, if I was asking you what performing with a purpose means to you or to the Huddle, either one, what would that be?
Performing with a purpose. Obviously, everyone's got I always say everyone's got a different reason for why they train. Some people might happy doing 3 days a week, but they like their kebabs and they like their beers on the weekend, right? I'm not a coach who's going to tell grown adults what they can and can't do with their free time. If somebody comes to me and says, Craig, I need to lose X amount of weight, I want to get stronger, I want to look better, I'll tell them, look, this is what you have to do. Whether your goals are strong enough for you is your way, right? For me, I think we were talking earlier, before we started this conversation. I don't drink. I'm not a big drinker anymore, and that's really helped my mental health, and 2, my physical health. So performance with a purpose, I think it just depends on the person, and we get a range of people walking through the door.
Sure.
So I think that is such a varied question in a sense.
So go deeper then. What about you? Forget everybody else.
Me?
If Craig's going to perform with a purpose, what does that mean?
For me, it's a case of leading by example, I'd say. Being as light as I possibly can, being strong as I possibly can. And that extends into all different areas. Am I a runner? No. Would I run a marathon? I've actually chatted about this with a mate of mine.
He's getting done, mate. If this fridge can do it, bro, you can definitely do it, bro. You know what I mean?
It's not on my list of things that I want to do. And maybe that's the reason I should do it. So for me, it's a case of, because I'm not challenging my focus in any one particular thing.
Realm so far.
Then if you said to me, Craig, I'm going to get you training for a marathon, I think I could go run a marathon now.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, without training for it. I wouldn't hit no world records.
No.
But I believe I've got the mental capacity and the physical capacity to do it. I said this to a mate of mine, and I actually thought he said, me and a mate are doing a trial marathon. And he said, because he does ultras, right? So I thought he said to me, we're doing a trial marathon. And I went, okay, I'll do that with you. Just see what sort of times you're hitting.
Yeah.
No, he said a trail marathon. And the first thing we did was run over a hill in the morning.
Run over Cleve Hill now?
Oh, we did Robinson Hill in Gloucester, and then we went over to Pingswick Beacon and so on. I got about 18 miles in, and I've never done that amount in my life.
Yeah.
And I
bought mission. Well, maybe that's the thing. That's one of the reasons why I did an Ironman. It was the polar opposite of what I was good at.
Right.
So I did it for the exploration of, I coach people at this. I need to be able to show people that I can train for it, do it. And I mean, everyone knows who's watched this before, that went south quite quickly. But definitely something that's massive. So Bernard, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate you having me here and obviously beating the shit out of me earlier.
Yeah, it's been great.
Gang, if anybody's in the Cheltenham, Gloucester area, strongly recommend this gym. As we've mentioned before, there's many gyms that are saturated throughout here that are not offering the level of coaching. I can vow for this man. I've worked alongside him, played a rugby pitch with him. I haven't fought him yet, but he's kicked the crap out of me. So anyway, thank you very much, Craig. I appreciate you coming, brother. And as you said, thank you for having me, man.
Lovely, mate. Thank
Legend.
you.
Bosh.